listening to the Devoted Dreamers podcast, and I'm your host, Merritt. I believe God has an unfolding plan for your life, a God-shaped dream just for you. But so much gets in the way, right? Fear, comparison, imposter syndrome. What if I mess this up? You are not alone in those feelings, and I'm so glad you're here for Season 8. Keep listening to gain some transformational tools that will help you release the lies so that you can freely show up in the world, offering your gifts, leaning on God in your weaknesses, and serving His kingdom with the dream He's given you. Welcome to episode 194, and today I am talking mentorship with Kelsey Chapman, author of the book, What They Taught Me. But before we get to that, I've got a couple of questions for you. What do you say when you meet someone for the first time and they ask, "So what do you do?" Are you hesitant to mention your dream? Or do you diminish it? Or maybe ignore it altogether? Not because you don't care, of course, but maybe you just haven't found the confidence or the language around how to speak about your dream. I get it. It feels incredibly vulnerable to say, this is what I'm passionate about, or this is what I feel God made me for. It's almost like it's presumptuous, right? Especially if you're not very far along in the process of pursuing that dream. But I am here to say to you, why wait? If God has given you a dream, if you feel it in your bones, if you're tired of stumbling through the answer to the what do you do question, this is the reason I launched my dream coaching business this year. This is for busy Christian women just like you who want to get serious about their dreams, to implement a plan to follow through, and to be able to confidently communicate what God has laid on your heart. Because if your dream is from Him, it is far too significant to let it linger any longer. So I want you to know I am booking a couple more dream coaching clients between now and the beginning of summer. And I would love to connect with you to see if dream coaching is the right fit for you right now. Sign up for a no obligation discovery call today. The link is in the episode description, but you can also find it at bit.ly/dreamercall. Okay, let's get to this encouraging conversation with Kelsey Chapman. Kelsey's an author, a podcaster, and personal cheerleader to women who are building their dream life and business. When she first launched her brand in 2015, she felt all the overwhelming feelings. You know what I'm talking about. She was scared to take such a huge leap and commit to showing up for a dream that she didn't know would pan out. And mentorship is what pushed her to rise up and continue making her dream a reality. Over the first few years of business, she leaned on the shoulders of several incredible mentors who took her under their wing and taught her how to make the jump from dreamer to doer. Her mentors helped shape her character so she could become the CEO and leader she is today. Now, Kelsey's excited to pay it forward and be that cheerleader for you too, because she believes, just like I do, that you can turn your wildest dreams into reality. Again, she's the author of the new book, What They Taught Me, about this very experience of being mentored and mentoring others. And wow, this conversation, it's a follow-up to one I had with her in 2017, and it is so full of goodness. A few of my takeaways you might listen for include, number one, the glorious gift of watching others go before you, even if it's because you feel a little bit too far behind. Takeaway number two, having the courage to let go of something that could be standing in the way of your real dream. And then number three, God's never-ending faithfulness on this journey of life and of dreaming our God-shaped dreams. I cannot wait to hear your reactions to this one. Here's the interview with Kelsey Chapman. Hey, Devoted Dreamers. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm super excited to bring you Kelsey Chapman once again to the Devoted Dreamers podcast. She was on the show back in July of 2017. I looked at the date and I was like, how is it possible? That was like 3.5 years ago. But that episode was number 52. If you want to go back and listen to it, I highly recommend it. We talked about her life of moving from an overworked employee to a profitable entrepreneur, and that has continued, and now she's an author author of the book, What They Taught Me. So Kelsey's here to share that with us today. Hi, Kelsey.
Hello, Merritt. It is so good to be here with you today.
It's so fun. I love it. And just such a neat opportunity as a podcaster to kind of make a friend and get to maintain a friendship from afar. And then here we are, get to pick up again and see
Here
what's
we are.
new.
Totally.
Yeah.
And just like get to be in person for a few years. And then now we're really far away, but
now
I'll be
really
visiting Colorado.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying yes to doing this and really to share with the listeners what you've learned about mentorship and just what a key aspect I think that is of our growth and our lives, that we're not meant to do this alone. And so, tell us how your dream has kind of shifted and like where the book idea came in. Like, fill us in since 2017.
Totally. Well, I will say I've had a dream of writing since I was a little girl, and I really only ever got started in this online space to write books. I started with a blog, very intentional to build a platform so that a publisher would pick me up. And so all of the other components where I kind of stumbled into digital marketing were like, oh, I just enjoy doing this, so I'll do this for other people too, or I'll teach people how to do it. That's really where that side of my business came into play. But the whole reason I learned those skill sets was to market my words. And at the time, my words were a blog. And I was just intentionally cultivating a space where people would come back wanting my words, because I think any single one of us might write the greatest words that ever graced God's green earth. But if we never share them with the world, or if they never get in front of people, well, that's a journal or a diary. And so, not that I thought I was going to write the greatest words that ever graced God's green earth, but
no,
you know what I mean.
Say that.
And so I just, put my pen to paper, or really cursor to Google Docs, and got to writing. And then I built this blog and built this kind of online virtual home through Instagram and, at the time, Blogspot, and got started. And over the years, again, like I mentioned, I started teaching what was working for me, or started offering it as a service for other writers or online business owners. But I kept writing because that was my main goal all along. And so behind the scenes, I was writing, and I was kind of writing short form posts on social media. And then I had a blog where I was writing there as well. And I was just building this kind of portfolio of words to share with the world. And probably around the time I met you, or maybe about a year later, I started shopping around this proposal of this book to agents. And I found my girl Tawny, and she helped me bring this book to life on mentorship, which is really just my life message. And the rest is history. I've been right behind the scenes for 3 years now, waiting to get this out into the world. But as we know, a book is quite a labor of love. And so I have just been, chipping away at it, writing, reworking, writing again, reworking. And finally, in February, it made its way out into the world. And it's just this message on mentorship, and it's my heartbeat. And I just love women investing in women, or really people investing in people. And so it's fun to get it out there.
Does it feel like 3 years was a really long time?
Yes. And it really was supposed to be 2.5 with COVID. My actual original release date was October of 2020, but I was grateful for it to be pushed to 2021 because I think, as the publishers looked at the year ahead back in March of 2020, they're like, we just don't know. So let's give it some time and space. And I was like, great, sign me up, And so it really would have been 2.5 years, but I didn't mind it being 3.
Yeah. Okay, good. But I think about that and I'm like, oh, I wonder if you had known in 2017 that we would be talking about this in 2021. It's like, oh, it does feel like a long time.
I know.
A lot has changed.
People told me, like if you go the traditional publishing route, it's a long process. It's years. And so, that proved to be quite true. Amazon, if you self-publish, you can get that baby out in the world in 3 months, 6 months. But I don't work that fast typically, but someone who does work that fast could do it, in that time frame. But I had a little 3-year time frame.
That's great. Tell us about the book and your heartbeat for mentorship. You talked about it in that episode we did in 2017, but share what you can with and who it's for.
Yeah. So, as mentioned, even in the previous conversation we had here on the Devoted Dreamers podcast, I just love women investing in women. And I have had these women who have so graciously passed along their wisdom to me and shared what they've known to shortcut my process. And because they've been so gracious, they've been able to distill 10-year lessons down into something that maybe took me a year to walk through and to glean information from. And I'm so grateful that I didn't have to walk that long, hard road. Now, there are certainly 10-year lessons of my own that I'm going to be passing along to someone a few steps behind me so that she can shortcut the process. But I'm so grateful for the lessons I didn't have to learn the long, hard way, that I, had these women who are willing to say, hey, take this path instead of that one, or hey, veer right, veer left. I promise it'll save you some time and pain. And so I just had these women who showed up in different facets of my life. I didn't expect them to have it all figured out in every area of life, because who does? For any of us who are married, we know a spouse doesn't complete us. So how in the world could a mentor complete us? Like, that's a pretty high expectation, even for a spouse. So like, how much more is that a little unrealistic for just like a guiding voice in your life? And so I didn't expect them to be perfect or have every bit of life figured out, but I just assessed like, wow, they're really an incredible mother, or they're an incredible friend, or an incredible businesswoman, or an incredible wife. And I want to operate in fullness in that area. So I'm going to ask them to meet with me and just put myself in their presence a little more frequently and see what I can learn along the way. It doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be, formal talking points or a specific Bible study. I just want to learn from them in whatever capacity they have. Maybe I'm running errands with them. Maybe we're meeting for coffee, but like, I just want to be around them and learn. And that has forever changed my life.
Yeah. And we talked about last time just that you would come with this heart of service, not just, I want something from you. So talk a little bit about that and how you advise women to go after this kind of relationship.
Yeah. I think so many of us, are longing for connection, and that's mentors included. And so if you can approach a mentor with a heart to serve them as well and give back to them, and to acknowledge they're another person on the other side of that equation who also values connection and support, it's going to make it a total win for them to invest in you when they know you're not just in it to take from them, when you're also in it to give back. So I always approach my mentors with like, hey, I would, love to serve you in any capacity that would be meaningful for you in this season. So like, I value you giving me an hour of your time for coffee so much that if there's a way I can support you in your life, count me in. If that's helping, 3 of my mentors with their social media in a season because they didn't really get it, but they knew it was important for their business, sure, I will pop in and help there because they help me so much by just giving me their wisdom. Or if that's like running errands with someone and staying in the car while the kids are in the car so they can run in and drop dry cleaning off,
That's
like
priceless.
things like that, that go such a long way. Just being flexible, offering to buy their coffee. It doesn't have to be these huge demonstrative acts of serving, but just them knowing like you're there to support them too goes such a long way. It makes it effortless versus a drag for them to invest in you. And I think people want to invest in others, but they've got, 1,000 other responsibilities on their plate. And so if you can just make it a total win, like, it's so life-giving for me to show up and invest in you because I know you care about me. That will keep a mentor invested and motivated for years to come. Again, not to manipulate them into wanting to mentor you, but just so they know it's not a one-sided relationship, because we're busy. We're all pulled in a lot of directions. Not many of us have time for just a one-sided relationship. And so how do we make it a win for them?
That's awesome. So I know you've just done like a big move, transition, lots of change happening in your life. Do you have women who are still, that you would consider mentors right now? And how is that working out with change happening in your life?
Totally. So, I've got a few mentors back in Colorado where I lived. And then thankfully, a lot of my mentors are from the Middle Tennessee area where I just moved back to. And then I have a few online mentors who one lives in Florida, one lives in Chicago. And so they go with me anywhere. We always met on Zoom anyways, and we'd get together like once every other year. And so, I think sometimes people are afraid like a virtual mentor might cheapen the relationship, but that's not true. I found just as much depth and connectedness through women who live far away. It's nothing a phone call can't fix. And so, or I actually talk to those mentors a lot more frequently on voice memo, whether that's in text or Voxer. And I feel really connected in their day to day, as long as we're swapping voice memos and we don't have to schedule formal times to chat. We're just they're in my back pocket whenever I need them and whenever they might want to ping something off me. And so I do know, though, what it's like to find a mentor in a new city, because when I did move to Colorado, I did not have any personal connection to a mentor. And I had to go out and find someone in a city I was unfamiliar with where I had, two friends. And so I will say, putting yourself out there and finding those mentors can be challenging and overwhelming, but the reward is so worth the risk.
Mm-hmm. And I love how you describe it as kind of a little bit more free form than maybe my brain puts it together, it doesn't have an agenda necessarily or a scheduled, every second Friday, we're going to blah, 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 So I think that's really helpful to think about it in terms of it's just another relationship that you want to nurture and pour into. So that's really helpful.
Totally. Yeah. And depending on your mentor's personality, I'm always a fan of reading the room if they want structure. And, some mentors are come to our call with 3 questions. I don't want to chit chat. This is my preference of a framework. Then honor that. If you were the mentor, Merritt, and you preferred that, you better believe I'd honor that. And I'd come with my 3 questions because I want it to be in a format that makes it effortless for you. And so I think if you're the mentee assessing the personality of the mentor, you might want to invest in you and accommodating that, because you're going to get more energy from their end. It's going to feel more effortless, more light, exciting for them to participate if you accommodate their preferences.
Yeah, that's great. These are all really fun, helpful tips. I'm having flashbacks to times that I haven't been a great mentee. So.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
Right. We've all been there.
We all get to learn and grow. So
totally.
That's great. Well, I would love to hear you talk about this 3-year, probably even longer than that process of heading towards this book And, even when you knew it was on the horizon and coming your way, like, what were the challenges you faced? Any fears or struggles? Like, tell us the real scoop. What was that
so
like?
many. I think one of the biggest pain points that might be relatable is just watching people in my industry arrive faster. Like, that's always painful. And you're like, why me? Why am I last? And ultimately, no one's last because there's always someone a few steps behind you. But in your friend group, you might be one of the latter ones. And I certainly was at times. Like, I would look around and I'm like, whoa, so-and-so got a book deal, or whoa, their book deal was big, or they're with the big publisher, whatever. And I would wonder if I was, just not as important, or, if I was ever going to be picked. It felt like being picked last for kickball in elementary school sometimes. And I will say that I'm really grateful I went later than some of the friends in my friend group. Now, someone might be listening and be like, Kelsey, you're 30, like you're 31, like you're not last. But I was later in my friend group of like immediate friends who had dreams of being an author and were actively pursuing it. And so my super close friends, I was later in that circle. And I'm glad I was, because I learned what expectations to have with a publisher. I learned, that friend with a few million followers, her publicist through her publisher quit right in the middle of her book launch and she got an autoresponder. Okay, that happens. If that happens to someone with 2 million followers, it might happen to me with, far less. And so, like, helpful expectation. That happens to people. Like, I just saw the disappointments, the hard parts, the good parts, and I was able to form pretty healthy expectations about my own book launching process because I went later and because I got to watch. And I am grateful for that. I'm grateful I didn't go first. And I wasn't the guinea pig figuring it out and sharing with my friends. And so, that was a very real fear. And sometimes still, another fear is like, okay, what if I'm a one-hit wonder? I got a book out, but what if I never get another deal? It's not like the fears stop. They just take different shapes, right? And so that has been a constant in my journey. And I've just had to be honest with myself of like, I'm very much experiencing these fears. And I'm going to go ask a friend who's navigated it before what they did. Or, my first subpar review. I called my girlfriend, Arielle, who is a poet. She puts her words out on Instagram for all to see and comment on all the time. And I knew she's had to navigate this before. She's put a lot more words out than I ever have. Let's see what she has to say. And she's like, oh yeah, it's going to happen. And she was like, but you feel it in the moment. You don't ignore it. You feel it. You move through it. And then you go get a reminder of why you did this, and you go read a good review. Now, the loudest reviews are the bad ones, but no one is ever going to put creative work out into the world and only experience positive feedback. Like, you're in the wrong industry if that's what you want. But I promise, like, living and doing what you were made to do is worth the occasional critic. And so again, like, anytime those scary moments happen, I find someone kind of like my mini mentoring moments who's walked through it, and I'm asking, what's the best path forward? You've walked this road, just tell me the best path forward. And so those have certainly come up in my writing journey. But man, I mean, it's been a wild ride. Like I said, I mean, I was writing little passages in my journal when I was a kid, or I was, typing this profound piece on ants, and all the weight they carry on their tiny little back. I was writing these little essays that I thought were so profound in college that now I like die inside over, but I'm trying to be kind to my younger self. And, it's had so many iterations, and what you see in the last 3 years is really just the tip of the iceberg of 20 years of tinkering and playing and changing and evolving. And so it's fun to see such a long dream come to fruition.
Yeah. Did you ever want to give up?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So you knew me probably when I did this, or maybe not, but I ran a magazine for a little bit. And that was another dream from when I was a little girl. I wanted to be an editor at a magazine. And, as I got older, I was like, I'm just going to start my own. And during those years, I mean, we grew really fast, and we had these writers, and they were turning in their pieces, and we really had a vision to grow it. Like, I mean, my vision was like, as Christine Kane is to Propel and A21, I want to be to Radiant magazine, and Radiant, really Radiant, which we had these other legs we planned to build out. And about a year and a half in, one team member basically was like going to pull out, and the other team member and I were like right about to file like 501c3 nonprofit paperwork, which is quite a drag into tame. We'd filled it all out, but we knew we were about to file, and that was going to be long. And we kind of gave ourselves permission in that moment to like, do we want to be done? And I thought, certainly not. No. And I was like, I feel peace either way. I'm going to let you make the decision, Kelly. And she was like, okay. And she was like, and I took a few days away and I prayed, and I felt like God was like, no, like, this is actually your decision to make. You are the leader, and you need to be a leader and decide. And you have a choice here, and it's good either way. This is your choice. And when I gave myself permission to assess what I wanted, I knew it wasn't managing people turning in articles and managing a bunch of people doing a bunch of creative work, because I realized I had lost all of my creative energy. I hadn't written in like a year and a half because I was managing. And I realized in a management role, I'm no longer super creative. I can't wear both hats at once. And so we ended up closing up shop on Radiant magazine. And I took about a year off, and I thought, maybe I'll never write again. I think all my creative juices went away. The whole reason I got started, zapped all my creative energy, and maybe I'm done. I'm just going to put that dream on a shelf. And after about a year of margin and rest, I pulled that dream back off the shelf, and there it was, still living, still inside me, but it just needed some downtime. And a new expression. And the expression of writing for me was back to the foundation, books, not a magazine, not managing articles and deadlines and, word counts and typos. It was writing on my own terms. And so I definitely thought that dream had died, or I definitely thought that I might lay that dream down. But once I had some time to rest and have margin reintroduced, it came back to life.
It's like this reminder that there are some sacrifices to be made along the way. And it wasn't that you were like going down a bad path at all. You just had a set of priorities that were different than what you needed to be able to write a book for yourself. So I think that's really helpful to know that like sometimes we say goodbye to something that was serving us or whoever for a little while, and then it ceases to. And rest, the need for rest is a real reality.
Gosh. It is something I always come back to. Usually when my creative juices are zapped, it's time to rest. And it's probably been time to rest for 6 months to a year by the time I really actually choose to rest. But then it takes me living in like excruciating pain, whether that's emotional or physical or whatever. And then I finally will rest, and oh, wow, all my creative juices come back.
It's funny that you say that, because I had a weekend just now, we're talking on a Monday, where like I would sit at my desk and I have nothing to give to my work. I just can't. And so I've been trying to implement this Sabbath rest. I mean, it's in the Bible. Like maybe I should think about that and do it on occasion. But yeah, it's kind of like God saying, you know what, you can't keep going at 100 miles per hour. It's just not possible. You were made to rest.
Totally. I just got a book actually called something with the word Sabbath in it, because I it's the lesson I always come back to. I mean, I think when you're a doer, sometimes you got to learn to be a beer. And the beers might need a little kick in the butt to be a doer. But I always have to come back to learning to be, because there's beauty in the balance of both of those things. And my aunt tells me this story frequently of this pastor who didn't take time off for like 10 years. And eventually he burnt out. Maybe it was like 5 years. He burnt out and took like a whole year off. And it wasn't until like 6 months in, so 180 days, that he finally felt like recovered, like he'd actually rested. He didn't feel rested the first 40 days or the first 75 days. He felt recovered after about the 180th day. And then he looked back and he did the math and he had this moment. I think it's from a book, like this is a true story. And he had this aha moment of, oh, that's how many Sabbaths I've missed. That's what they were there for. They were there to recharge me, to motivate me to keep going. And I actually didn't feel good until I took that many days of rest. And so I actually recently went on a trip after my book launch because I burnt the candle at both ends for a little too long. And it was the first time in 5 years that I took 5 days off of not touching my email. And I knew in the moment there would be an immediate reward of rest that week. What I didn't anticipate is the next week when I came back and was back at work, how creative I'd feel. And I was like, oh, I forget, like, sometimes I don't want to rest in the moment because I want to get done what's on my mind. Like, what is on my mental checklist to do feels good to check off my list and I get a little dopamine hit. But what feels better is when I actually have creative flow and energy and motivation because I rested last week, because I did my homework of rest. And so it's always a lesson over here. And I feel like rest is like vital for us to carry our dreams to fruition.
For sure. Yeah. And it's like I need that constant reminder. Like not, yes, like I should be doing it because God says I should be doing it. But then there's also this residual like, oh, and my body needs it. And that's why he says it. There's a why. There's a why behind it. It's not just this like random commandment.
Yeah. I'm learning the why right now.
That's great. I know you're reminding me, I went, this was several years ago, but I went on a vacation with my parents and it was the first time I'd ever taken a 2-week vacation. And it took the entire first week for my like energy, like hype of working and all of that to like settle down to a point where I was like, oh, this is what relaxation feels like. Right? So
totally. That is quite frequent for me on vacations. It's like the 5th day before I really truly unwind.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I got to figure out how to implement that in my real life. In COVID life, still being in lockdown. Well, not entirely, but you know.
Somewhat. Totally.
Somewhat.
No, I get it.
Yeah. Well, gosh, is there a verse of scripture that you're just loving right now or something that's been encouraging you that you'd love to share with the listener as an encouragement?
Oh my gosh, I might have said this in the last one, but it's like my life verse. Psalm 36:4, one of those. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. And I always go back to that one because a lamp doesn't give you vision for like a mile ahead. It gives you vision for like the next step. And so often I want that mile ahead. And I need to take the next right step. I also might have given you actually the wrong notation on that verse. So you might have to fact check me there.
I'll look it up. Yeah.
Because my other favorite one is those who look to him are radiant, and they're both Psalms. And so I interchange them. But, you know, I always want to know what's next. Like, what's next? And sometimes I just need to get in the present and take the next right step, not the next right 50 steps.
Right. Well, and the reality is like at step 1, step 49 is probably going to be something different by the time you actually get there.
Totally.
Yeah. For sure. Oh, Kelsey, it's been so fun to have you back on the podcast. We can't wait 3 years next time.
I know. Well, I mean, it's been a privilege to be here with you and just such joy, Merritt. I love that you equip dreamers with so much actionable information to really carry them with longevity. And so it's fun to chat about it with you.
Congrats on your book, too.
Thank you.
Great. Well, will you close us, Kelsey, kind of looking back on these last several years and talking about the transformation that you feel like God has done in your life as you have said yes to the dream?
Oh, man. I think, as I've said yes to the dream, the transformation God's done is through the reflection of like how he's shown up for me over the years, because a lot of these mentors have been in my life since I was young. And so to see that transformation shows his faithfulness. And if I'm being honest, these last years have been hard. Like, I'm not talking kind of hard. I'm talking hard, like losses of parents, cancer diagnoses, misdiagnoses, huge curveballs, job losses. And so I think for me, as I reflected in the writing process of how God was faithful and the mentors he provided in my life, I was able to remember like he's going to be faithful in this hard stuff too. And so I'm so grateful that this is the season I was writing in, because when it got hard, on the hard days, I was able to say, look, I've been through hard stuff before. It doesn't negate it. It doesn't, it doesn't mean like I'm going to get through this overnight, but I can see God was faithful. And every single hard part of my life, he's allowed me to come out stronger, more deeply connected. Every storm I've weathered, I've had a firmer foundation to stand on after it. And so like, he's going to take care of me. And so I feel like that's really the work that's been going on in my heart of like remembering God's faithfulness as I've navigated the last few years. He's been faithful my whole life, and he'll remain faithful.
Thanks for listening today. Don't let the conversation end here. Let's connect over in the Devoted Dreamers Insiders group on Facebook. We're building a sweet community of dreamers, so no one has to walk this road alone. You can find the group at bit.ly/dreamer group. I'll see you in there.